An old man and his wife lived at the end of a worn-out farm. Their place was so remote that if someone turned their head off the main road and caught a glimpse of it, they'd mutter, "Ah, what even is that place?" The house was filled with rotting wood, smelled of damp earth, and it was obvious that no one had taken care of it for years. The woman was a thin, quiet old lady who spent most of her time doing housework and tending to the farm. Her husband, however, was a grumpy, angry old man, the kind who would scream, "What do you want from me?" even if you just said good morning. He rarely spoke to his wife, and when he did, it was usually with shouting and harshness. The poor woman would just nod silently and keep quiet. One hot summer day, the sun was blazing. The old man decided to dig a well in the middle of the yard. He claimed he might find water, or maybe he just needed an excuse to complain and stay busy. The woman helped him with a bucket and a shovel. The two worked quietly. The only sound breaking the silence was the shovel striking the dry ground. After a few hours, a sudden fish came from the hole. It was like something had burst or steam was escaping from deep underground. The man instantly dropped his shovel and leaned over the hole. A faint white foam was bubbling out from the darkness. He furrowed his brows and said, "Go inside. Bring the flashlight." The woman said nothing. Wearing her dirt-stained clothes and a faded floral skirt, she limped toward the house. A few minutes later, she returned, flashlight in hand. The man took the flashlight, tied it to a long rope, and lowered it into the hole. The rope kept going and going. He kept unrolling more and more of it, but the flashlight continued to descend like the pit had no bottom. Eventually, the flashlight disappeared from sight. After a while, he began pulling the rope back up, but something had caught. He grunted, struggling with the weight, and finally managed to bring it up. The flashlight was shattered, but something else was tied to the end of the rope. A small white pouch. His hands trembled as he opened it. Inside was a piece of gold, and beside it, a slip of paper with a strange writing. The man picked up the note and stared at it, but he couldn't understand a word. It was written in a bizarre script, something between cuneiform and alien symbols. With a huff of frustration, he crumpled the paper and tossed it to the ground. He said, "I'm going to town to buy more flashlights. You watch this damn hole until I get back." The woman nodded. The man got into his rusty old pickup and drove off. As soon as he left, she rushed back into the house. She rummaged through the old cupboards and eventually found a dusty old dictionary. The cover read, "Forgotten Languages." She smoothed out the note and, with great effort, began piecing the words together. Finally, she managed to translate it. "Send food." The woman went to the fridge and pulled out a large piece of ham. She placed it into a metal bucket, tied it to the rope, and lowered it into the hole. She waited. A few minutes passed, then she began to pull the bucket back up. It was heavy, so heavy she had to stop halfway to catch her breath. Eventually, the bucket reached the surface. It was full of jewels, glittering gemstones, golden coins, and necklaces that shimmered in the sun. There was another note inside, this one in English. "Send more food." With trembling hands, she pulled the bucket aside, hid the jewels, and hurried back into the house. She wrapped the treasure in old clothes and tucked it deep into a wooden chest beneath the bed. A few hours later, the man returned with a truck bed full of flashlights. He put several of them into the bucket and lowered it down the hole. He waited, and started pulling the rope back up. When the bucket came up, he exploded with rage. It was empty. All the flashlights were shattered. He cursed and kicked the bucket furiously, panting in anger. Then he stormed into the house, grabbed his handgun, and shouted, "I'm going down there myself. This time, I'm bringing the gold back." The woman said softly, "Don't go. That hole, it's strange. You might not come back." The man snapped, "Shut up!" He brought out a large bucket, climbed into it, and said, "Pull me back up in 10 minutes with the winch." The woman nodded. The man clutched his gun tightly. She attached the bucket into the winch on the truck and slowly lowered him down. 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 10 minutes passed. She stared at the clock. Then, with hesitation, she walked over to the truck and turned the crank. The winch began to raise the bucket. When it reached the top, the woman froze. The man wasn't there. There was no sign of him. But the bucket was full of gold bars, necklaces, coins, and things she had never seen before. A new note lay on top of the treasure. She picked it up. In clean, familiar handwriting, it read, "Thank you for the meat. I'd be grateful if you could like the video before I continue the story." It was close to 2 a.m. The exhaustion from a long day still weighed heavy on my shoulders, but my mind wouldn't shut off. Like always, I needed a short walk. I pulled my hoodie over my head, popped in my earbuds, hit play on a mellow playlist, and stepped outside. The usual route: Main Street, and 2 alleys to the left, past the house that always has its porch light on, and finally down to the little park at the end of the neighborhood. The air was cold, but not unbearable. It was more that damned silence, the kind that always blankets Washington nights. The streets were empty. The yellow glow of the streetlights cast long shadows across the asphalt. The wind rustled through the tree branches, and the crunches of leaves under my feet created a repetitive rhythm. At first, everything was same as usual. Even that little dog behind the neighbor's fence, the one that always growled, just looked at me that night without making a sound. That was odd. But hey, maybe animals deserve a quiet night too. About 10 minutes in, I felt the first strange twinge. A gray car was parked along the curb, its interior lights still on, like someone had just closed the door. I stopped and looked. No one was inside, but there was fresh fog on the windows. From the inside, with finger marks trailing through it. I frowned. That feeling, you know when something tickles the bottom of your gut, but you don't know why? I kept walking, a little faster now. I passed the car without looking again. In moments like that, I always tell myself, it's nothing, just random things your brain is overreacting to. But then, the footsteps. A soft sound, not loud, like someone in sneakers walking lightly on pavement. It took a few seconds to realize it wasn't me. I stopped. The sound stopped. Slowly, I turned around. The alley was empty. No cars, no people. For a second, I felt ridiculous. You're 26, Ryan, a grown man. You're scared of shadows? I kept walking, pulled out my phone, flashed the light behind me. Nothing. A black cat padded calmly across the alley. Maybe that was it. Maybe that was the sound I heard. I chuckled at myself, scared of my own imagination. But a few steps later, the feeling returned. This time, there was no sound. Just a weight on the back of my neck, like someone was watching me. Everything looked the same, the cars, the trees, the quiet glow of the streetlights, but somehow, I knew I wasn't alone. I tightened my grip on the phone, decided to cut the walk short. Passed by the house with the always lit porch. It was off. That had never happened before. I sped up, my footsteps quickened. Tried focusing on the music, but I couldn't hear it anymore. Didn't even know what song was playing. All my brain wanted was to listen to everything else. I turned into the last alley. Our house was at the end, just a few hundred feet, that's all. Then, again, footsteps. This time, I was sure, behind me, not far, not echoing mine, but with a different rhythm. I stopped. The sound stopped. I gripped the phone with both hands, turned the flashlight behind me. No one. Squinted into the darkness. Cars where they should be. Shadows stretching across walls like pencil lines dragged over gray paper. The wind through the trees now sounded more like breathing. Deep. Slow. Behind you. I walked. No. Ran. In my head, 1,000 scenarios spun. Someone's following me? A thief? Just a late-night stranger? Or am I going crazy? I reached the front door, shoved the key in the lock, it jammed, my hand was shaking. With a loud click, it turned. I rushed inside and slammed the door shut behind me. Panting, even the sound of my own breathing felt unfamiliar. My phone was still in my hand, screen lit. The music had stopped. I went to the window, carefully pulled the curtain back. The alley was empty. I didn't sleep that night. 3 days passed, but that uneasy feeling never left. Even in broad daylight, I felt like someone was out there. Eventually, I decided to go to the police, just in case. A female officer listened to my story. She said they could check nearby security footage. I agreed. 2 days later, they called me in. In the review room, they showed me the footage. From the moment I left the house, a tall man, dressed in dark clothes and a mask, followed me. Always a few meters behind. In every camera angle, he was there. Never got closer, never did anything. Just followed me, in the shadows. At the end, when I entered the house, he stopped, stood still for a few seconds, then vanished. The officer said, "You're lucky he just followed you." But that's what's truly terrifying. Because that night, all I had was a vague feeling. And now I know I was being followed. And that shadow is still out there. If you want to hear more scary stories, make sure to subscribe so we can reach 1,000 subs soon and bring you more.